All right, back in action. What a clear day. FedEx truck stops for me. So nice. All right, today I'm having a little bike ride in the morning down to the train depot. I'm gonna take a trip to Santa Fe. There's some blog post. I guess I'll put it in the description of this video if you're interested in reading my thoughts on the day. But I'm not talking about Santa Fe. I'm not talking about train rides today. What I'm talking about is this new, what are you going to call it? Let's call it a movement that is happening within the neighborhood of Fair West. That's the neighborhood I'm exiting right now. This is not a legal entity. This has not moved into that status. What this is one guy with a bunch of enthusiasm trying to get other people to also have enthusiasm. That's where you come in. So I'm going to explain a little bit in this. It looks like I got about 29 minutes worth of video. It'll be mostly daylight once I arrive at the train station, and then a little bit of my ride back at night. So I got about 29 minutes to try and get my point across. I think the gist of it can be understood very quickly. Also linked in the description, you'll find the website that talks about what the Stronger Fair West movement is trying to be. I'm just staring at the website right now. I try to add some structure to it, and so you'll see a mission statement, but this is not a nonprofit. This is not a for-profit entity. This may evolve in the future, but really I'm just trying to generate some activity here outside of my own head. And thus far, there's a lot of activity in my own head, but it needs to expand. So this is about making my neighborhood, Fair West, maybe your neighborhood too, better with community involvement. And that's super abstract, which is why, kind of like a nonprofit would do, I've defined some goals. And some of the initial goals that I think are achievable and are not being addressed currently by the city or by anyone in the private sector is about how we can rebuild, sell, occupy the homes in our neighborhood that are vacant or abandoned and condemned. If they're vacant and in good shape, that's a different category than if they're boarded up and the city inspector has come by and they are not fit to be inhabited. Certainly that's a tougher problem to solve, but it's not unsolvable. It's just hard, and that's why it hasn't been solved in any sort of timely manner in so many situations. Last count, which was a couple of weeks ago that I did, riding around the neighborhood. If you ever see me, I have a kind of a long beard and shaggy hair, riding around on a brown bicycle. We have 5 homes, possibly 6, I forget the number exactly, that are just boarded up, condemned by the city. What's happening? And there's a variety of stories. There's piecemeal information all over the place. The city has it on their radar. But as we all know, things take a lot of time, and they really take too much time. The lack of a fast resolution is not serving the neighborhood very well. And I don't just mean property owners and renters. I mean everybody. No one is really benefiting from this. The city is getting called out more often. They're getting more 311 complaints regarding these properties. It's a net negative. And so if I have this intention, which I do, of finding ways to strengthen the neighborhood in this rather abstract way, I think trying to address the housing issue with regards to how are condemned and abandoned properties going to be rehabilitated so that they have owners who care about those places. How are we going to do that? That's a large. That's one of the number one goals that I have at first. In order to do that, I think it really does tie in very well with meeting more neighbors and bringing together a collective interest. This is something that the neighborhood association is actively trying to do, and I am trying to get more and more involved. I volunteered to be a board member. I talk to different people who are on the board right now, but everybody's really busy. And so it can be hard to know what the next step is, when progress is being made, when things are stalled and need to be pushed forward. Really hard to know, especially because a lot of that information, or a lot of the stalls and the roadblocks, they don't come from the volunteers in the nonprofits like neighborhood associations. They come from reaching an impasse with a homeowner who won't respond, or reaching an impasse with the city not knowing how to get information from them. Like, what happens when a property hasn't paid their taxes for 3 years? The state of New Mexico says that after that time, they can try to foreclose upon the home, but it takes a long time. And is foreclosure really going to give us the solution we want? Or if they are foreclosing, can we buy that house? Can we essentially be more in control of the house flipping? Housing is a especially complicated topic right now, as most of us are probably well aware, and it's confusing to understand. And my journey to understand that is being documented on the website, in the Stronger Fair West section, as well in my blog, and videos like this. So this is going to be a pretty high level introduction. Just plugged in my laptop. This is going to be a pretty high level introduction into what this movement is trying to do and why I think it's even possible and what this means. A big part of what I'm calling this movement is not just talking a good talk. It's really, how do we put our words into actions? How do we start seeing and feeling progress in a way that people can recognize? And that's why I'm creating this website. That's why I'm creating these videos. That's why I'm making myself some coffee right now. Pardon me as I turn off the coffee. All right, not just coffee, it's espresso. Where was I? I don't know. Let's reset. Checking out my little bike ride here. I'm crossing into one of those nice neighborhoods by the UNM campus. You know, I do a lot of bike riding around Albuquerque. I'm a trained registered nurse, and I would ride my bike to hospitals, whether that's the VA or Presbyterian or UNM hospital. And you go through a lot of neighborhoods, as I'm sure a lot of us know, but when you're not in a car and on the bike, you go through the neighborhoods. You don't go through the arterial roads that mostly just bypass the neighborhood. So you get an understanding of how neighborhoods feel different. This neighborhood right here, there's a lot of wealth. There's no question about that. And it feels really nice. Does it feel nice because of the wealth? Maybe. The landscaping is great. There's a lot of shade, there are trees. And what's the difference between this neighborhood and Fair West? You could have endless debate. You could say it's trees, you could say it's police presence, you could say it's home ownership, etc., etc. But I think it's hard to deny that there are big differences. And what can we learn from this neighborhood and bring into our neighborhood? What do we have the time and resources for? What's realistic? What are just differences? You know, you can't just take an idea that works somewhere and plop it in somewhere else. We have local knowledge of what is not working in Fair West, what has been tried, what has not succeeded, why it didn't succeed. So how do we take this information that everyone has a little bit of insight, and how do we collect that and mobilize it? Again, this really goes together with what the neighborhood association can use to be very effective. And I don't want to present the idea that I'm not working with them. I hope to somehow leverage and either be directly involved with or be some sort of arm or branch of what they're doing to try and take my enthusiasm, my time, my effort, and use that to generate effort, enthusiasm, and activity from other neighbors as well. So along those lines, just to give you now that we've talked about a high-level view, what am I actually doing? I've not actually done anything essentially besides create some videos, a website, and make a bunch of posts on the internet. There have been, over the past couple of months, a lot of meetings that I've been having, trying to figure out what does it look like if you are actually trying to acquire these properties? Why hasn't anyone acquired them yet? Who within the city is aware? I've been making inroads within the city. I'm not going to give out any direct names on here. If we talk in person, I'm happy to share contacts, but I don't, in videos, want to put out any phone names or phone numbers or names within the city. There are people in the city who will help us find out a lot of the answers to questions that I know I certainly have had. Things like, if I can't get in contact with the owner and they haven't paid taxes and the city is going to put it into foreclosure, how can I accelerate the process to make sure foreclosure happens? Or how can I buy a tax lien so that we can take over this property? What kind of work is required to bring it up to code? Can I go into the house to look at it before I try to buy it so that I know what liability I'm looking at? Do I potentially have to knock this down? I've been talking with other nonprofits, reaching out to HomeWise, a local nonprofit that deals with securing capital for these types of ventures, sometimes on the builder end, sometimes on the buyer end. I've been talking to Habitat for Humanity. I'm going to be volunteering on some of their projects and trying to learn more about what they do as an organization throughout Albuquerque, if their resources and attention could potentially be directed at our neighborhood, and if not, possibly what I'm learning from them I can also apply in our neighborhood just through other means, whether that's with other nonprofits or with volunteer work or through the neighborhood association, or maybe even with some private ventures. Who knows? That's really the process that I'm trying to explore, and I'm in a brainstorming phase in a lot of ways, but with objectives that I think are important to help stay on target. Some of those objectives or constraints, if you will, are in the name. Strengthen Fair West. Fair West is the neighborhood in which I live. That's the neighborhood that I'm looking to affect directly. It's my neighborhood. Hopefully it's your neighborhood. And I think we can make real progress. It's hard to change all of Albuquerque. It's hard to change even the other side of the neighborhood. I just noticed, for example, today that there was some rumblings on the internet that the state fair has wrapped up, and that the parking signs, the parking permits that are put up to try and reduce abuse of street parking, if you will, on the east side of the neighborhood, they didn't solve the problem in the way that it sounds like all neighbors are particularly happy with. Were they enough? Were they an improvement? All things that are hard to say, but it just goes to show that the bigger your scope in terms of the population that you're trying to affect, the harder it is to get consensus, the harder it is to get actual movement, and the harder it is to get action that produces the results that you want. I do not want to create more problems for the neighborhood, and I think a big risk in making changes is that you put in a lot of work, you spend a lot of money, you do a lot of things, and did you achieve what you wanted? You have to know what you want ahead of time, and that's what I want to come to some sort of consensus. I think I have a evolving and almost clear idea of what I want. Check out the website. It really lays it out. It might sound a little bit rambly here, and that's why I put this down on paper, essentially, electronic paper. I put it on that website so that you can get a better idea of what am I actually talking about, and why I think it's achievable, and what the practical limits are. Things like within the neighborhood, or only certain homes, or how much money is available, or all of the real considerations. Switching topics for a moment, I'm going down MLK here in the video, and man, it's so fun to go down this hill. On the other hand, can you see all these trees? It's amazing how the canopies are really great for shade on the sidewalk, but they make for a constant head bobbing routine as a cyclist. I'm pretty happy with how the camera has actually captured the experience of how close your head gets to these branches as you're going, I don't know, not even that fast, at maybe 15 to 20 miles per hour, but you're next to fast traffic, and it would really be an upset to the day to get a branch in the face. And so, just for anybody who's interested in general and bike infrastructure, I think this is an interesting example of a really convenient downhill bike path with some pretty annoying obstacles. Maybe I'll head out there with shears one day and just trim off 6 inches. I don't think I'm supposed to do that, so I probably won't do that. But I wish we could do that. Can we do that? Those are some of the questions that are similar to what happened in Fair West. Just yesterday, on September the 17th, there was a ice cream social. I think that's what they called it, in the park. I wrote a blog post about that. I took pictures. I tried to summarize a little bit of what I learned from going there. The city came along with an architect to explain the current phasing of the project, the current reality of when they might break ground. Spoiler alert, not anytime soon. And what the future looks like, some of the next steps. It was great. It was a good opportunity to meet some neighbors. Lots of people were out there. There was a lot of life in the park. There was a family having a big party, and there were people playing volleyball, and then the neighborhood association had this event to talk about the park, and they gave out ice cream. Really great. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to participate in more of that and instigate a little bit more of that if I can, and if other people are interested. If you're interested, if you liked it, if you went there, find some way to just, reach out. Post in the Nextdoor group, post a comment here, wherever. Just try and do something if you're interested, because I think a lot of people are kind of secretly interested, or they're interested and they're happy to talk about it, but they're busy and it's hard to make time. It's hard to find people. It feels awkward just to walk up to someone and say, "Hey, how's it going? Do you want to get to know me?" Even though you're neighbors, there are boundaries. I like to respect boundaries. It's part of being a good neighbor. So it's a tough topic sometimes to broach, but I have found within our neighborhood that a lot of people are very happy to talk about it, and after a little bit of maybe a unexpected or an unknown how to react sort of opening introduction. Wow, I need to drink more coffee. After an awkward introduction, the conversation typically becomes very productive and really easy. I've had great experiences talking to people within the neighborhood about who has interest in doing what kind of work, and if they would be interested in knowing more about what I'm doing. Because I think right now, I mentioned that I am a registered nurse, but I do not have a full-time job. I have a fair bit of free time on my hands, and so I am devoting a lot of time and attention and thought into how to make what I'm talking about reality. And it's not just through my own efforts, but it's through leveraging existing effort and other people's time and resources and interest. So that's what I'm asking for. You don't have to offer me anything other than interest and conversation. What can we do to just get to know each other and figure out, are my interests aligned with yours? How can we both hopefully work together to solve neighborhood issues, or really, to come back to the name, to strengthen Fair West? A lot of the inspirations for this, I didn't just come up with this on my own, certainly. There are a number of initiatives, nonprofits, and efforts out there that talk about neighborhoods in the United States specifically, and the changes that have happened over many decades. There are sociologists who write about the changes in landscape because of, you name the topic. Sometimes it's cars, sometimes it's social changes, sometimes it's political changes that then affect social things. Certainly there are economic disparities. There's a lot of concern and problems associated with drugs. There's homelessness, etc., etc., etc. If you want to see the kind of approach to problem solving that interests me and has led to the creation of Stronger Fair West, then I would recommend that you go to my website, to the Stronger Fair West section. I just had to pick up my cat because he needs some attention. All right. So you go to the Stronger Fair West section, go to the bottom, and there are linked both websites and videos. There is one regarding Strong Towns. Strong Towns is a non-profit. It was created by I believe he was a civil engineer who worked to do road projects in different municipalities, and he saw a lot of problems in how roads and transportation created a more isolated community, a weaker community. And it's not just cars are bad and bikes are the solution. It's a much more complex and nuanced topic, and therefore he created this nonprofit called Strong Towns, and he's written a number of books. There are videos, there are forums to discuss, there are initiatives in different cities across the United States. And I'm trying to get an initiative here in not just Albuquerque, but in our neighborhood to apply a lot of what I think are the good parts of Strong Towns. I'd be happy to discuss it in greater detail. I've been having conversations offline with people who I met through Nextdoor who are also interested in this. If you find this interesting, realize that even though it can feel hard to find like-minded people in Albuquerque, they are here. I've been meeting them. I'm trying to become more familiar with who is into this, who has time, attention, and experience to contribute to making stronger towns. And so Strong Towns is a great place to look if you have time to read the book or listen to it. I think that's really thought-provoking. If you have less time, then I also put a link to, let's see if I can find it, to a video by a YouTube channel called Not Just Bikes, and they talk about city design and how it's changed in the United States. And they put forward a lot of the concepts that Strong Towns writes about in their material, but they put it together in a video. Just turned on the video. That's about 5 minutes long. And so it can, if you like video, if that helps you get a better understanding of an idea, the video and audio combination rather than reading text, I would recommend that to get started. Just glancing back at the video, and I must have switched to the nighttime ride. I just thought the first part of this, I have never recorded with the GoPro at night. That's the little camera mounted on my helmet. And so I wanted to see how it would perform in low light situations. In the city, not too bad, as long as there are very bright sources of light somewhere in the adjacent or in the nearby area. But here in the bus depot, you can really see that it gets very dark, hard to have any contrast. Once I get onto the street, not too bad. Actually pretty fun to see all the colors. I don't know why the light is streaking and smeared so much, but it is. So hopefully that doesn't bother your eyes. I'm coming up to the end here, so I won't go too deep on any more of my concepts about neighborhood strengthening and redevelopment. But I would encourage you that if you find this interesting or compelling in any way, please reach out. Not because I'm leveraging this to make a bunch of money or anything like that, but because I think we can actually make a difference, and I want to be part of that difference, whether it's as in some capacity. I just don't know how that looks. It's hard to know. So many phone calls that I'm getting. cancel that. Hopping onto Central here with glancing back at the video. I don't know what this car off to the left is doing, this little lowrider. But man, it's a fancy car. Anyhow, I hope to meet more neighbors. I'm pretty friendly, and I don't want to impose my beliefs and approaches on people too vociferously, but I'm not going to hold back either if given the opportunity. So let's have a friendly chat or meet online or in person and see what we can do to make Fair West just nicer for living in. Because I want to live in a nicer neighborhood, but I don't see any way in the near future that I'm gonna move. So we just got to make this place nicer, and this is I think selfish motivations are an important part of motivations. It's part of the reason that I don't think the city moves particularly aggressively on a lot of this stuff. They have great intentions. They have big problems to solve as well. And just like anything, if someone lives in our neighborhood, their motivation to address problems in the neighborhood is exponentially higher than someone who lives on the other side of town. And a lot of the people who live in the city, or who work for the city, they mean well, and they do their job, but they don't live in our neighborhood. And they have to deal with a system that is, I'm sure, very bureaucratic and very hard to wade through. I felt the same thing as a nurse over and over and over. If anyone's been through the emergency department at UNM Hospital, you will probably know the frustration of hurry up and wait, or maybe just wait and then do a little something and then wait a lot longer. It can be really frustrating. My experience as a nurse really taught me that it's important to try and figure out what hasn't happened, what needs to happen, and how to set realistic expectations for achieving something. I'm trying to apply that approach to neighborhood redevelopment, and hopefully that resonates with you too. I'm gonna stop chit-chatting because I think I'm about to turn in the video onto a new street, and pretty shortly it'll be over. So just enjoy the rest of this video without my chit-chat, and maybe I'll turn on the audio of the actual ride. All right, goodbye.